My neighbor's daughter told me something that ruined my life. You ever have one of those moments where a kid says something so weird, so creepy, you laugh it off, but deep down it messes with your head? Yeah, that's where this starts. It was a Saturday morning. Birds were chirping. The sun was out. I was in my backyard, coffee in hand, halfway through mowing the lawn. Pretty standard stuff. Then I hear this tiny voice from the other side of the fence. "Hey, Mr. Jake." I turn around, and there she is, Lila, the 6-year-old girl from next door. Blonde pigtails, red jumper, always carrying around this beat-up stuffed fox. She was sweet, usually. A little shy, but polite. "Hey, Lila," I said, smiling. "What you up to?" She stared at me for a second too long, like she was studying my face. Then she tilted her head and said, "My daddy says you should stop asking questions, or you'll disappear like the last one." Now, what do you even say to that? I laughed. I thought maybe I misheard her. "What was that?" I asked. But she just giggled and ran off, fox in hand, back toward her house. I stood there frozen, hand still gripping the lawnmower handle, engine rumbling under my fingers. What the hell did she mean by the last one? I'd only been living in this neighborhood for about 4 months. Moved in after a job change, mid-30s, single guy, graphic designer. Quiet cul-de-sac, nice houses, decent neighbors. The man next door, her dad Tom, I think he was off. You know the type. Always polite, but way too stiff. Didn't make eye contact. Never smiled. He worked late hours, and I never saw his wife. Lila would play outside sometimes, but always alone. No friends. No mom. The first weird thing I noticed was the smell. Yeah, I know how that sounds. But about a week after I moved in, there was this sharp, metallic smell coming from their garage. I only noticed because I walk my dog past their driveway every night. It was like a rust and bleach mixed together. Like something had died and someone was trying really hard to cover it up. But I brushed it off. Told myself I was imagining it. Until Lila said that. And then I started noticing more. Like how their lights would flicker on at 3 a.m. How there was a lock on the outside of their basement door. And how Tom always looked tired. Not, I have a baby tired, but I'm hiding something tired. Sunken eyes. Twitchy hands. The works. I didn't want to be that guy. You know, paranoid neighbor, making assumptions, feeding into conspiracy theories. But I couldn't get what Lila said out of my head. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I started watching. Every night around 2:30 a.m., Tom would leave the house. Sometimes through the back door. Sometimes through the garage. No car. Just him and a flashlight, disappearing into the woods behind the houses. 15 minutes later, he'd come back. No bags. No gear. Just him. Once, I swear I saw him come back with blood on his sleeve. I thought about calling the cops. But what would I say? "Hi, yeah, my neighbor goes into the woods at night and his daughter says spooky stuff." That'd get me laughed off the line. But then something happened that changed everything. It was Wednesday. I came home from work early. I parked my car, and as I walked to the door, I heard it sobbing, faint, coming from the direction of their house. It wasn't Lila. It sounded older, like a woman. My heart started pounding. I crept to the side of their house, near the basement window. The curtains were closed, but I could still hear the crying, low, muffled, like someone gagged or trying to scream through tape. I backed away, trying to stay calm, and that's when I heard the door creak open. "Jake." I turned around. Tom was standing there, holding a garbage bag. His face was blank, his eyes dark. "What are you doing?" I swallowed hard. "Just looking for my cat." I lied. He didn't blink. "You don't have a cat. You don't have a cat." That sentence hit harder than it should have. Tom stood there, still holding the trash bag. His knuckles were white around the top like he was choking it. I wanted to say something witty, maybe play it cool. But my brain had gone full static. "Oh, yeah," I finally stammered. "I just meant, I was thinking of getting one, actually. Smooth, chick. Real smooth." He kept staring. His eyes didn't blink. I could smell something now coming from the bag. Sharp. Sour. Wrong. "You should stay on your side of the fence, Jake," he said. "Not everything needs your curiosity." He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He said it like a fact, like someone giving weather advice. Then he turned and walked toward the garbage bin. But he didn't throw the bag in. Instead, he walked past the bins, straight into the garage. The door slammed shut behind him. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in my house felt like a warning. Every shadow felt like someone watching. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. Maybe the crying I heard earlier was a TV. Maybe the bag had spoiled meat in it. Maybe Lila was just playing some weird kid game. But I knew I was lying to myself. Because the next morning, I saw the trash bins. Still empty. He never threw the bag away. I decided to talk to someone. Not the cops. Not yet. But maybe someone who knew the neighborhood better. There was this older guy named Bill who lived 2 houses down. Retired. Big on lawn care and neighborhood gossip. I figured if anything shady had happened here before, Bill would know. I found him watering his tulips and made small talk for a while. Weather HOA fees, the usual boring crap. Then I casually asked, "Hey, what do you know about Tom?" The guy next door to me, Bill, paused, turned off the hose. "Why?" he asked. "Just curious," I said. "He keeps to himself, mostly. Kinda intense." Bill leaned in a bit. "You know about the woman who lived there before, right?" I blinked. "What woman?" He looked surprised. "The one who sold the house to Tom. About a year ago. Nice lady. Real quiet. Kept her garden neat as a pin. Then she just left. No moving truck. No goodbyes. One day, she was here. The next day, the place was up for sale. That sick feeling returned to my stomach. Was her name Abby? I asked. I had no reason to guess that name. It just popped in my head. Bill's eyes narrowed. "Yeah? How'd you know?" I didn't answer. I just nodded like it was nothing and thanked him for the chat. But inside, my mind was screaming. Because that night, after Lila's creepy comment, I found something. When I couldn't sleep, I'd scroll Zillow to see what homes were worth in my area. Just a dumb habit. But that night, I looked up my neighborhood again and found the old listing for Tom's house. From before he moved in. And the seller's name? Abby Whitman. There were photos of the interior too. Bright walls. Art on the staircase. A crib in the corner of the master bedroom. No. That same room had blackout curtains nailed into the window frame. So either she left voluntarily or something happened to her. And the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't ignore the truth. Tom didn't move in. He took over. It got worse. The next day, I came home to find something on my porch. A small stuffed fox. It was Lila's. There was a note pinned to it. "Stop watching. Or next time, it won't be the fox." No name. No handwriting. Just that. I rushed to my backyard. The fence was still there. Quiet. Still. I hadn't seen Lila in 2 days. I walked along the edge, looking through the slats. No toys in their yard. No chalk drawings on the patio. No sound. Then I noticed something scratched into the wood, low near the base of the fence, like a kid's fingernails had dug at it. One word. Help. I called the police. I told them everything. The smells, the bag, the late-night trips to the woods, the crying, the stuffed fox. I left out the fence scratching. I didn't want to sound completely insane. They promised to send a patrol car for a wellness check. I waited and waited. But by nightfall, there were no sirens. No knock on my door. No follow-up. So I called again. They said officers had already visited. That Tom had answered the door. That everything seemed normal. "Is the child safe?" I asked. "She was playing on the living room floor," the dispatcher said. Nothing suspicious noted, but that didn't make sense. Because while I was on the phone, I was staring out my window at their empty, dark house. The night stretched on. I stared at the dark house across the street, trying to convince myself I was just overreacting. It was late, and the whole thing felt like some twisted nightmare. I hadn't heard from the police since my call, and I didn't know what to do. Was I just being paranoid? Was I imagining things? After all, there was a possibility that Tom was just a weird guy. That the crying I'd heard was from an old TV show. That Lila's weird comments were just the ramblings of a lonely kid. But deep down, I knew something was off. I had to know. The next morning, I decided I couldn't keep pretending. I was going to find out what was really going on at that house. It was about 10 a.m. when I saw Tom leave. He did his usual thing, slipped out the back door, flashlight in hand. I waited for him to disappear into the woods. Then I grabbed my keys and drove to his house. I pulled into my driveway and glanced nervously at the house next door. The blinds were drawn tight, and the yard was dead silent. I knew I had a small window of time before Tom would return. I walked across the yard as casually as I could manage and stood in front of their garage door. It was locked, of course, but the door to the side of the garage was open. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but it sure as hell wasn't what I found. I stepped inside, heart pounding. The air was thick with that metallic smell again, the one I noticed a few weeks back. I looked around. The place was a mess, tools scattered on the floor, piles of old boxes, a rusty old workbench. Nothing that immediately screamed crime scene. But then I spotted it. A small door at the far side of the garage. It was tucked behind a stack of crates, almost like it was meant to be hidden. The door was old, wooden, and had a lock on the outside, but the lock was broken. The door was slightly ajar. I froze. I didn't know what I was looking for, but everything inside me screamed that I needed to see what was behind that door. That it wasn't just a regular basement or storage space. Something about it felt wrong. So I pushed the door open. It was pitch black inside. I fumbled for a light switch and found it near the wall. The flickering fluorescent light buzzed to life, casting harsh shadows across the room. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Stronger now. It was like bleach, but mixed with something else. Something I couldn't place. It burned my nose. Then I saw it. There was a large tarp on the floor, drenched in something. I couldn't tell what at first, but I felt it. I felt the heat rising from the floor. I took a step forward, and that's when I heard it. A voice, muffled, distorted, like it was coming from under the tarp. I stopped dead in my tracks. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I could hear breathing, ragged, labored. Someone was underneath that tarp. My hand was shaking as I reached toward it. I didn't know why I didn't run. I should have. I should have turned and bolted out of there. But instead, I gripped the edge of the tarp and pulled it back. The first thing I saw was the arm. Pale, thin. The skin was torn in places, bruised. My stomach lurched, and I almost gagged. And then I saw the face. It was Abby. Her eyes were wide open, unblinking, staring at the ceiling. But it was clear she was dead. Her mouth was open, frozen in a silent scream. I stumbled backward, almost tripping over my own feet. My mind couldn't catch up to what I was seeing. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. But it was. She was dead, and Tom had hidden her. Just then, I heard a creak behind me. The door to the basement. I whipped around, panic surging through me. Tom was standing in the doorway. His face was blank. He wasn't even surprised to see me there. He was just calm. Too calm. "Jake," he said softly, like he was talking to a neighbor about the weather. "You shouldn't have come in here." My heart raced, and my mouth went dry. Couldn't move. Couldn't think. "You know, I thought I could trust you," Tom continued. "But you've been snooping around, asking too many questions." I wanted to scream, to run, to tell him to stay away. But I was frozen in place. He stepped into the room. I was never leaving mine. "This is a family matter," he said. "It's better if you just forget what you saw, before it gets complicated." I didn't know what was happening. My body was shaking. "Get out of here," Tom said again, his voice suddenly cold. "Before I decide to make you disappear too." I couldn't breathe. I didn't want to test him. I didn't want to push it any further. So I did the only thing I could think of. I turned and ran. I didn't stop running until I was inside my house, slamming the door behind me, heart racing, lungs burning. My mind was on fire, but I couldn't make sense of what had just happened. I barely even heard the sound of my phone vibrating in my pocket. I grabbed it, my fingers shaking. It was a text from Bill, the guy I'd spoken to earlier. The message was short and to the point. "You should leave. They're coming for you." I didn't understand. How did Bill know what happened? How did he know what I'd seen? I quickly typed back, "What do you mean? Who's coming for me?" The response came fast. "You've seen too much. Tom doesn't forgive. Leave before it's too late." I didn't wait for another message. I grabbed my keys and ran for my car. But the moment I reached the driveway, I froze. Lila was standing at the edge of the yard. She wasn't smiling. She was just staring at me, her little stuffed fox in her hands. Her eyes were wide, too wide, almost unnatural, like she was trying to tell me something, but couldn't. "Lila," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't move, didn't say anything. Then finally she spoke. "You shouldn't have gone inside. Daddy's angry now." Her words made my blood run cold. Before I could respond, I heard it, footsteps crunching on the gravel behind me. 7.